Hi, it's James from the Canadian Urban Garden. Today we're going to do a salsa bed grow bag. When you think of salsa, you think tomatoes, jalapeno pepper, onions, garlic, and cilantro. We have something like that here. This is a Roma tomato, and a determinate tomato. So it's only going to grow to a certain height, and then it will produce all of its fruit at the same time, as opposed to the indeterminate tomatoes that we put in the garden in the last video that will grow very tall. Because it's going in a bag, we're going to use an indeterminate tomato variety because they're smaller. We have a jalapeno pepper here that I grew from seed that we're going to put in there. Then we have, we can't grow garlic in a bag at the same time as we're going to grow the rest of this stuff because it takes too long. You can see that I have garlic in the ground right there, but I planted that last winter and it takes too long to grow. So what I've got here are garlic chives. So that'll give you a bit of the same flavor. Onions, same thing. I have some in the ground over here, but they also take too long. They also take too long to be able to grow in a bag at the same time as the rest of these things. So I'm going to use some green onions or bunching onions that I got from my neighbor who lives down the back alley. And he's got his own YouTube channel called Jardinier Justicier. And we'll plant those up as well. And then over here, we have some cilantro that I just pulled up from the bed over there that had the spinach, and I don't know how well it's going to transplant into the bag, but we'll give it a shot. We're gonna get going here. So the first thing you're gonna want to do is put the tomato in. The way that we plant tomatoes, I don't know if you remember from the last videos, you take it out of the pot that you got it in, and then you're gonna pinch off some of the bottom leaves because you're going to bury it deep. Most plants, you want to bury them right at the top of the pot or the root ball, right? But if you look closely at a tomato, you can see that there are all these little hairs there. Those are all aerial roots. And so when you bury it deep, then they'll become roots and it'll become a much more robust plant. So I'm going to bury it super deep. And I think I'm going to stop right there. So I'm going to move some of that dirt out of the way. I'm actually going to lay it down in a sort of a trench, right? And because it's a grow bag, it's a circle. So I'm going to lay the roots around the circle like that. And you can do that planting any tomatoes. You lay them in a trench like that. I just want to pack it down a bit. So I'm just going to give it a bit of support here. Because when it gets taller, it might need it. Next, I'll put in the pepper, and it's the next biggest thing. So I'm going to try to put it as far as I can away from the tomato. So a pepper, unlike a tomato, you have to plant it at the same height that it was. So you can just take it out, break the roots up a little bit, rough them up, and plant it on the other side of the bag. So then I'm going to take my cilantro and I'm going to attempt to transplant it. And I'm going to put it close to the tomato because it will shade it out and then keep it cooler, and hopefully it doesn't go to seed right away. Oh, I have a clover in there. I'm just going to weed it out. One last one, just in case. But I really doubt that I might be going to get some cilantro from the local nursery and redoing that because that doesn't look like it's going to work. Then I'm going to take these green onions, which I'm actually going to cut the tips off so they grow short. Onions, on the other hand, will transplant up pretty easily because of the way that their roots are. You can see how wiry they are, right? And how loose that soil was. So when you get onions, unlike the cilantro, which doesn't have tough, wiry roots like that, it's going to be harder to do. So you can just pack that in around there. And onions are pretty tough. They're going to want to grow almost no matter what, I think. Green onions seem to be a pretty tough plant in my experience. Bulbing onions, well, we'll see how that goes. I just started those this year. And last I'm going to plant up these garlic chives. I have a spot for them over here. And these are perennial. They are from last year. I had them in the garden, and so I just pulled them out so I can put them in this bed. And they, like the onions, are going to be fairly easy to transplant. They have those big wiry roots, and they kind of want to live anywhere. I've already beat up that plant so many times, and it just keeps coming back. Lift up some of that cilantro. Seems a bit low. So then I'll put a thin layer of mulch on it and water it in, and hopefully we'll see if the cilantro, everything else should survive, but we'll see if the cilantro can survive that transplant shock. I'm just going to put a thin layer there because I don't want to bury the cilantro too deep. The rest of it won't matter so much. But just want to give that cilantro the best chance it has to survive what we just did to it today. So this idea is not a new one. I first saw it in this book, Grow Bag Gardening, by a guy named Kevin Espiritu, who has a YouTube channel called Epic Gardening. And it's got plenty of ideas for people who don't have a lot of space and have to garden in containers like these grow bags. So I'm just going to water that in and slide the squirrel fence on top and put it back in its home. I'm going to give it a good deep water here because it's hot today. You can see that the water can come straight out the sides. Okay? So with grow bags, if you don't want to get your surface wet, you'll have to put them on something so the surface doesn't get wet. Oops, I'm getting the book wet. Something else you got to remember is once you water it, it's going to be much heavier. So I actually should have put it where it was going before I watered it. We'll see how this goes. That's a grow bag salsa garden. Thanks everybody for watching, and have a nice day.